The magnetic pull of strong leaders, why we can't look away. What's up? Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to do something fascinating together. We're going to break down one of the most powerful and mysterious forces in human history. The question seems simple, why are we so drawn to strong leaders? But the answer will take us through biology, psychology, and the deepest corners of what it means to be human. And by the end of this journey, I guarantee you'll never see power, or those who wield it, in the same way again. Let's start with the obvious, the part we all know. We're drawn to strong leaders because they promise security and order. In a chaotic world, someone who says, "I have a plan, follow me," is like a beacon in the fog. It gives us the feeling that the ship isn't going to sink. And we see this every day, just think about it. At work, what do we prefer? A boss who second guesses every step, or one who makes clear decisions even if they're tough? Most of us prefer the latter because it takes a weight off our shoulders. It reduces our mental load, allowing us to focus on our tasks without the anxiety of uncertainty. This instinct is nothing new. In fact, it's ancient. Picture our ancestors, thousands of years ago, living in small tribes. If a predator or a rival tribe appeared, there was no time for a debate committee. They needed someone who in a split second would yell, "This way, now!" The survival of the entire group depended on that quick decision and the blind trust in the one who made it. That need is hardwired into our DNA. Okay, security, clarity, survival instinct. This is the tip of the iceberg, the part we all see and feel. But if this is what's floating on the surface, what secret, invisible, and powerful engines are driving everything underneath? And here comes the first big reveal. A lot of this magnetism is due to a phenomenon psychologists call paternalistic transference. It's a technical name, but the idea is very simple. We unconsciously project onto leaders the childhood need for a protective parental figure. Someone to take care of us, to tell us everything will be okay. And this need skyrockets, especially in times of crisis or fear. Understanding this is an incredible tool. On one hand, it allows you to see opportunities and patterns. When you see a society going through an economic crisis or a pandemic, you'll know that underneath it all, people are looking for security and a protective figure. And this is crucial, it also helps you spot the danger. It helps you see the red flags. The risk? This very mechanism makes us vulnerable to authoritarian figures who present themselves as the one true savior. The alarm bell rings when a leader doesn't ask for your trust based on their competence, but demands your unconditional loyalty and blames all problems on an external enemy, an other. That's when our need for a protective parent can be exploited. And all of this operates under an invisible rule of social nature. There are two main paths to leadership, dominance and prestige. Dominance-based leadership is built on fear and intimidation. It's the do-it-or-else approach. Prestige-based leadership is built on respect and admiration for someone's skills. It's the "I want to learn from you" approach. A clear, everyday example: the schoolyard bully leads through dominance. The brilliant student everyone asks for help with homework leads through prestige. We are drawn to both, but the emotions they generate are radically different. On top of that, our brain has a design flaw that complicates everything, a mental shortcut called the halo effect. It means that if we perceive a person has one very strong positive quality, like being a great public speaker, our brain automatically assumes they are also intelligent, honest, and competent in everything else. To fight this, there's a very useful mental strategy, the breakdown technique. When you feel that strong pull towards a leader, stop and mentally break them down. Ask yourself, okay, they're charismatic, but what are their concrete proposals? What's their real experience in economics? How do they treat their team? Force your brain to analyze the pieces separately instead of being mesmerized by the shiny, complete package. Even the ancient Romans understood a part of this. They had a concept called auctoritas. It wasn't the power to give orders, that was potestas. Auctoritas was a kind of moral and social weight, a prestige earned through experience, wisdom, and reputation. It was the reason people wanted to follow someone's advice. The lesson for today is brutally simple. True leadership isn't imposed, it's earned. It's built on trust, not decrees. If we put all this together, the key takeaway for our lives is this. Our attraction to strong leaders is not, for the most part, a cold, rational choice. It's a biological, emotional, and deep-seated impulse. Therefore, the most revolutionary and useful thing we can do is to consciously engage our minds. The operating principle is, feel the attraction, it's natural, don't suppress it, but always, always analyze the source of that attraction before you act. So now we have a map of the internal mechanisms. Understanding this gives us power, it gives us clarity. But if you thought we had it all figured out, get ready, because this is where the story descends into true chaos. Reality is never this neat. And this brings us to the first major controversy, security versus freedom. On one side, some argue that strong, decisive leaders are absolutely necessary to maintain stability, growth, and prevent chaos. On the other side, opponents warn that this same power almost inevitably ends up eroding individual freedoms, dissent, and minority rights. What's at stake here is no small thing. It's the fundamental contract between the citizen and the state. Let's debunk a myth we love, the born leader. The idea that some people are just born to lead. We're fascinated by this belief for a very simple psychological reason. It simplifies the world and absolves us of the responsibility to participate or to develop our own skills. The reality, proven time and time again, is that leadership is a set of skills that are learned, practiced, and developed. Believing in the myth turns us into passive spectators waiting for a savior. And this leads us to a paradox, a dilemma with no easy solution. Think about it. In critical situations, we often prefer a highly competent leader who's a jerk over a charming but incompetent person. This poses a brutal philosophical question. Are we willing to sacrifice ethics, empathy, and social harmony for the sake of pure efficiency? Where do we draw the line? Now, let's take a critical look at something we all applaud without thinking: decisiveness. A decisive leader is seen as strong, but what does it really mean to be decisive? Often, it's just making a decision very quickly, without all the information, and communicating it with great confidence. And we praise it because it looks strong. The uncomfortable question is, are we celebrating real leadership or just a good performance of leadership, even if that quick decision leads us to disaster? Let's talk about another controversy, but viewed through the lens of time, the perception of strong female leaders. Historically, the qualities we associate with strength, like assertiveness or dominance, were considered masculine traits. If a woman displayed them, she was labeled as bossy or aggressive. Today, the debate has shifted, but the double standards persist. The conversation has moved from, can a woman lead, to a much more subtle, how do our unconscious biases make us judge her strength differently than a man's? And here we get to the core of the human condition. The fundamental problem is that our Stone Age brain, which seeks a single, protective tribal chief, clashes head-on with the reality of our modern world, globalized, interconnected, and absurdly complex. Our primal instincts cry out for a leader who gives simple answers and points to a clear enemy. But our real problems, like climate change or global economic crises, require collaboration, nuance, and the humility to admit you don't have all the answers. And that's something strong leaders often don't know how to do. As you can see, the topic is a minefield of contradictions, myths, and dilemmas. A real mess. You've survived the chaos. Now it's time to go deeper, to see the details that separate the curious from the true insiders. Let's enter expert territory. There's a little-known but powerful concept called terror management theory. It proposes that deep down, much of our social behavior is driven by a paralyzing and often unconscious fear of our own death. And here's the connection. We cling to charismatic leaders and the great causes they represent, the nation, religion, ideology, because they offer us a sense of symbolic immortality. We feel that if we are part of something bigger than ourselves, a part of us will live on. Now for a complex scientific detail, but I'll explain it with an analogy. Let's talk about oxytocin. It's known as the love hormone, but its effect is more complex. Oxytocin increases trust and bonding with members of your own group, but at the same time, it can increase distrust and hostility towards outsiders. Now imagine oxytocin as a nightclub bouncer in your brain. It lets your friends, your people in with a pat on the back, but it gives strangers a suspicious look. A charismatic and skilled leader can, with their speeches, become the person who tells your brain's bouncer who your friends are and who the threat is. And we can't talk about this without mentioning a secret hero, a key figure often overlooked outside of sociology, Max Weber. He was a German thinker who over a century ago gave us the tools to analyze this. He was the first to clearly distinguish between three types of authority: traditional, like a king; legal rational, like an elected president; and the most interesting one, charismatic. For Weber, charisma was a revolutionary, almost divine force that broke the rules, and people followed it out of pure faith in the individual. But there's an alternative theory, a rebel view that turns everything on its head, followership theory. This theory says, let's stop obsessing over the leader and start studying the followers. It argues that leadership isn't something a person has, but a relationship that is actively co-created by followers. It is we who actively grant power and authority to those we believe can meet our psychological needs. A leader doesn't exist without someone willing to follow. And here's a detail from scientific research that clashes head-on with our intuition. Multiple studies, like those summarized by psychologist Tomasz Chamorro-Premuzic, show that overconfidence in leaders, something we perceive as a sign of strength and competence, often has a negative correlation with their actual performance. In other words, more humble leaders who express doubt and are more aware of their limitations tend to achieve better results in the long run. It clashes with our intuition because our brain makes a basic mistake. It mistakes confidence for competence. And now for the aha moment. Let's connect the dots. That paternalistic transference we talked about at the beginning, which makes us seek a protector, is fed directly by the halo effect, which makes us idealize the person. All of this is amplified by oxytocin, which binds us to their group. And this altogether perfectly explains why followership theory makes so much sense. We aren't passively following. We are actively creating the leader in our own minds to fill a deep need for security and belonging, an existential need that terror management theory explains. It's all connected. Reaching this level of detail gives us a much richer and more authentic view of the phenomenon. It's no longer a simple preference, it's a complex dance between biology, psychology, and sociology. We've reached the edge of what is known for certain. Do you dare to look towards the final frontier, towards what we don't yet know? Let's look to the future. 100 years from now, what could this look like? With the development of artificial intelligence, we might have AI leaders capable of analyzing data and making perfectly rational decisions, optimized for the common good. But would we follow an algorithm? Or would our biology still demand the imperfect, emotional, and deeply human charisma of a flesh and blood person? And this is where science hits a wall and philosophy has to take over. Science can explain the how of our attraction to leaders, the hormones, the brain circuits, the biases, but it can't answer the fundamental question, should we? Do we have a moral obligation to fight against this internal programming, even if it feels natural? Or is it wiser to accept it and try to channel it? This leads to a dizzying philosophical implication. If our attraction to certain leaders is largely a biological program designed for the survival of our genes on the African savanna, what does that say about our free will? Are our political decisions, the ones we defend so passionately, far less free than we think? Are we in a way puppets of an evolutionary past that no longer fits our present? And connecting with this could be the key to humanity's future. Gigantic problems like climate change or global pandemics require cooperation on an unprecedented scale. They require us to think as a species. But our instinct to follow strong leaders often pushes us in the exact opposite direction, towards tribalism, division, and an us versus them mentality. Learning to master this impulse might be the most important challenge we face for our long-term survival. And I'll leave you with the most provocative and open-ended idea of the entire video. Perhaps the whole concept of leadership, understood as one person guiding the masses, is an operating model that's becoming obsolete. Maybe the future isn't about finding better leaders, but about evolving into a species that no longer needs them. The journey through the labyrinth is over. We've reached the end. Now, let's take a step back and gaze upon the incredible landscape we've discovered together. Remember where we started. We began with a very simple, almost childlike idea. We like strong leaders because they make us feel safe, because they seem to know what they're doing. And look where we are now. We understand that this simple preference is actually an echo of our hunter-gatherer ancestors, a chemical cocktail in our brain, a trick of our mind to evade the panic of our own finitude, and perhaps the biggest obstacle to our collective future. We've journeyed from politics to biology, from history to the very essence of the human condition. Now I'm asking you directly, from this whole journey, from all these ideas, which one was it that just clicked for you? What piece of the puzzle made you see the world even just a little in a different way? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'm fascinated to read how these ideas resonate with each of you. And thank you sincerely for dedicating your time and attention to exploring these depths with me. If you enjoyed this mental journey, subscribe and hit the bell, because every video is a new adventure into the heart of the ideas that define us. Keep questioning, keep exploring, because understanding the world is the first and most powerful step towards changing it. The next time you feel that magnetic pull, who are you really following?